What is the biggest mistake you did not make as a teenager? Story 1. I was asked out. I said no. He intimately violated and unalived 2 teenage girls that same weekend. Edit. Many of you asked for more details. There honestly isn't much of a story on my end. This was over 30 years ago now. A male friend of mine called me. Steve, the intimate violator and unaliver, was with said friend. I was probably 14, 15 at the time. Steve got on the phone, started chatting me up, and asked me out the coming weekend. I was already dating a boy who was the cousin of Steve's girlfriend, Dana. I said no. That weekend, 2 days later, Steve and another guy picked up a 12 and 13-year-old. Steve violated the 12-year-old and then slit her throat, leaving her to bleed out in his bathtub. He then called out to her friend, telling her that the girl he unalived needed her. He then unalived the other girl. His friend heard a scream, went to investigate, saw what he'd done, and went and sat on the front porch. Steve tried to get him to help remove and dispose of the bodies, but he refused. Steve piled them into the back of his pickup and took the friend to dispose of the bodies. Friend still refused to help. Strangely, Steve took his friend home. Friend told his parents, and they went to the police. Steve was arrested, charged, and got 2 life sentences. To answer one of the more disturbed questions, no. I did not then, nor have I ever blamed myself. Yes, I believe he likely would have violated and unalived me that weekend if I hadn't said no. But no, I don't have survivor's guilt. And no, he didn't unalive these girls because I rejected him. He just wanted to do it. Everyone out here, didn't get pregnant, finish high school, didn't try some illicit substances. You're out here with a total royal flush on this game. Holy hell. I came here to say I didn't get pregnant, but this takes the cake. Well, I also didn't get unalived. The day's not over yet. My teenagehood sure as hell is, though. Back in high school, my U.S. teacher grew up in Alaska. When she was a kid, she got grammar lessons from this very quiet lady who taught the lessons in her basement, which was full of trophies her husband had hunted with a crossbow. The lady and her family would go on random long vacations. One of these times, her husband was arrested. It turns out he'd been kidnapping young homeless women, locking them in that very basement, starving them, then flying them out into the wilderness in his bush plane and proceeding to hunt them with his crossbow. He unalived something like 14 women. We're starting out this list straight out of, horror movies right here. That last story is that's a plot to a horror movie. That's worse than the Hostel movies. Ugh, I really hope we have to have a laugh at some stories. Definitely not this one. Story 2. I was at a house party and I wasn't drunk at all. I was late to the party and had only just started. This absolute 10 out of 10 girl came on to me and wanted to take me upstairs to muck and such, but I cannot tell you how drunk she was. I really would have wanted to under any other circumstances, but the fact she was so drunk just put me really ill at ease, and I said no, and she started calling me a butthole and that I was a runt, etc. About a week later, she added me on Facebook and apologized for calling me names and thanked me for not taking advantage of the situation. In high school, I was pretty and an extrovert, so in my friend group I always had the invites to parties for us either in town or within a town over. So one night my buddy's cousin was turning 21, and that sounded like the perfect party for high schoolers to crash. Once there, the cousin was obliterated drunk and was wandering around getting pictures with everyone so she could see them when she sobered up. After our pick, She came on to me, and there was no way I would have even if I wasn't friends with her family. So we partied for about an hour or so, then left. It turns out she had been coming on to a few guys trying to have some birthday fun, only didn't tell her Russian gangster boyfriend about it, so when he saw someone making out with her, he shot the place up. Like 10+ victims at the end of the chaos type shot it up. My hussy-ish buddies had thought about going for it, but also wouldn't do it as she was way too sauced up. Dodged literal bullets. What the actual hell? I had a similar experience, but I was drunk and had no idea if she was. A girl I only kind of knew said she wanted to, orally pleasure me right now. First, my brain melted down, but I somewhat recovered and said I didn't think I should take advantage. She said, "WTF, dude. Okay, I guess." I felt like an idiot at the time, and my friends teased me about it, but now I don't regret that at all. First of all, other people saw this happen, and I would rather not have everyone talking about some sloppy hookup. Second, and probably more important, I trusted my instincts, and I shouldn't feel bad trying to stay safe. Nope, I agree with the last. Even if you weren't facing Russian boyfriend bullets. No, if someone's that drunk and coming on to you, that's just taking advantage. That's taking advantage of a situation like that is just being a bad human being overall. Nope. One of the reasons I don't drink. Story 3. I'm currently a teen, and I have bad anxiety, and I know I'll regret not going out when I'm older. I mean, maybe, but if it helps at all, it is way more fun doing all the things you imagine when you're slightly older and actually have money to have a little fun. The going out is super glamorous, but if you're stuck with nothing but a tenner and your phone in your pocket while stressing it out about it all night, going out kind of sucks. Best nights have always been around my friends and laughing anyways. Don't expect you to not go out and make your own mistakes. Just remember this when you do. Yeah, if you can just chill your way through high school, you'll be way better off. Not necessarily. If it's something you want to do because everyone else is doing it, what do you mean you regret it? Horrible stuff happens at parties. I regret faking my way into clubs when I was 16 and meeting people there that would end up doing horrible things. And I count my lucky stars that I wasn't even chloroformed or anything like that. I also regret not going for enough walks with my dog before he passed. I regret worrying so much about weight gain and food, and therefore choosing to spend more time over summer holidays exercising than making puzzles or playing Scrabble with my grandma. I regret not continuing to play piano when I still had easy access to one. What do you want to do? Go do that instead of wondering if you should be doing what everyone else is doing, regardless of whether or not it's with other people. I was able to pursue a lot of hobbies by myself. I wasn't very adept socially growing up, but I was able to indulge in some of the things that I do now as far as like graphics and music and things like that. So that's very true. Just realize, or if you're going to have kids, let them do what they want and let them know that they have access to this stuff, and it's going to be harder when they have to actually pay for things. Story 4. Illicit substances. I thank my aunt for that. She popped pills like they were candy. My grandma was going to pick her up one morning. There was no answer at the door, so she went on in. She was sitting on the love seat leaning down, and my grandma thought she was just high and nodding off. She was cold and stiff and had been gone all night. My granny had a heart attack and could have passed as well. I'll never put my family through that. I know the truth about illicit substances. If you don't get help, you won't survive. It's a medical certainty. Thank you. Some think 1 or 2 at a time won't do anything to make the pain go away and gives me a little floaty feeling, nothing more. I, like you, had family members who were not only great teachers because they were addicts and showed me and my brother how we didn't want to live our lives. They were addicts for years. One even got sober for 10 or 11 years, was doing great, had a great job, bought a house, but then her albatross got out of jail and started his stuff of, why do you need to go to meetings? Why can't you have a cocktail after work with me? 10 years flew right out the window. Within 2 to 4 years of her abusing substances, her grandson found her OD'd on the parlor floor. He had to call 911 on her to save her, which he did that time, but no one could save her from herself or the substances, and they did end up terminating her. I'm glad I didn't experiment with substances till my early 20s. Nothing too hard, just weed and shrooms. I miss weed, though. Can't consume any due to my job, but man, do I miss it. Story 5. Get any girl pregnant. My mom gave me an intimacy talk. If I got any girl pregnant, she would kick me so hard in the thing I used to get the girl pregnant with, I would never be able to use it again. I believed her. My grandmother gave my brothers a speech about how there will be women who try to get close to you, but you must think of your futures. Imagine if you're saddled with a family as a teenager. This was when they were in their early teens. A couple years later, they were teasing her like, Grandma, where are all these women trying to get close to us exactly? My grandmother flat out told me, girls will try to trick you into impregnating them. Still waiting, Grandma. Trick me into having intimacy? Yes, please. My grandma gave me the same warning. Also, still waiting for this mythical horde of spicily starved girls. Mine just told me to knock up a girl who has family money or get a girl pregnant that makes a lot of money. That way, she'll pay child support if we split. My grandma knows what's up. As a teenager, my stepmother would tell me to clean my room and shower every day because no girl is going to get excited in a dirty room, and they damn sure don't want a dirty tool in their mouth. Story 6. I made sure to get out when I said I would. Growing up, I did a lot of petty crime for money. I sold pot to help pay for my college tuition and groceries, and eventually sold some harder stuff. For a while, I stole car parts and things to sell for extra cash. Eventually, I got to a point where I realized I could make more money from some credit card fraud than by working. I distinctly remember being 19 and being drunk and strung out at a party and being unhappy. I had enough money to equate a decent living for a 19-year-old if I kept doing what I was doing, and started to feel like finishing school would be too much work. Somewhere along the way, I set up a small business selling posters to college students, since the prints were only $1, perk of being an art major, for full glossy poster-sized prints. I sold them for $10 in person and got my roommates to do the same, cutting them in for a portion of the profits their posters made since I was the one that was generating the foot traffic to sell them. I didn't make much, but it was a moment where I realized I was making money off my art. Doing stupid illegal things may have paid more, but there was no price I could put on the peace of mind of not looking over my shoulder. Eventually, I stopped everything that wasn't on the up and up. I used the money I made to help during that transitionary period. I just view this as someone who's using their powers for good kind of story. He was able to find something that was legal, but he's kind of still using his survival and kind of business sense to really help him get through. And great that he was able to find that kind of release and be able to transition. I'm glad he did get out when he said he would. Story 7. Sending nudes. Found out the boys in our school had a shared email. They all had the password to where they passed around all of the nudes they got. Found out 2 of the guys I talked to who asked me for them were a part of that group. So glad I never took nudes or sent them. Girl at a nearby high school sent a video of herself to her boyfriend. This was when recording and sharing videos by phone was relatively new. They broke up shortly after, and of course, he shared it with other people. Parents complained she shouldn't be captain of the cheerleading squad anymore. Story made the newspaper. I don't know how it all played out, but I'm sure it was a nightmare for her dealing with all that. People are horrible. Let's shame an underage victim and spread around what happened to traumatize her further. Let's avoid shaming such victims, but at the same time, let's tell all the girls as emphatically as possible that it's a terrible idea to send nudes, especially if you're a minor. Let's point out that the guys pressuring them for nudes are generally the last guys on earth they should date. I was being sarcastic about the victim sharing part.
Please like and subscribe if you made it this far. I hope you'll enjoy the rest of the video and have a wonderful day.
Story 8. I'm the first woman in my family to beat teen pregnancy. I'm the only one of 4 sisters who made it to 19, well, technically 49 for a few more days, without popping out a kid. My oldest sister had one at 13 or 14. My younger sister miscarried one, then had her first on her 19th birthday. 13 or 14? That's really unfortunate. If it's okay to ask, was this involving another 13 or 14-year-old or... Man, I was like 7-ish, so it's fuzzy. But I think he was 15 or 16. It wasn't a creepy adult. My aunt adopted him. She always wanted a kid, but she never married. Well, she did later in life. That's a whole other story. But sadly, he had Down syndrome and a hole in his heart, and he perished from SIDS when he was maybe 2. Whoa, hell. The Greeks wouldn't even write that tragedy. Sadly, when my aunt finally got married in her 40s, I think the guy seemed nice but turned out to be an alcoholic. Can't remember how long before the divorce happened, but she seems happy on her own. She and my mom hang out all the time. Story 9. Using a vape. E-cigarettes were just getting popular as a substance in their own right instead of just a tool to quit smoking when I was in senior year. And at the time were still regarded as safe and non-habit forming by many. By the time I finished college, Juul was practically ubiquitous among people my age. I didn't use vapes because the thought of inhaling smoke of any kind makes my skin crawl a little, and it's expensive. Now we know vaping can in fact cause lung problems, and my old classmates are just as addicted as they would be to any other substance. This. 23 male here. Vaping is such an expensive habit. I've quit once and only lasted a month. It's so hard to quit. I've spent thousands and thousands on vapes. I probably would have paid a year's worth of tuition by now. Only way I was able to quit was cold turkey and immediately find an outlet for your free time. If I had any time alone, I'm positive I would have relapsed. For me, I started jujitsu and fell in love quickly. Don't get me wrong, quitting nicotine was still the hardest thing I've ever done, but I couldn't have done it without something new in my life. Maybe that's painting for you. Find something. Edit. 22 male. Might change the message if you know it's coming from a peer. Story 10. Horse. One night in college we couldn't find weed, but my buddies scored some Walter White crystals, I guess from a bar earlier in the evening. Had never done it. I had the lighter in my hand and the glass to my lips and was starting to cook it. I stopped and said, "This is a bad idea." Set it down and left. One of them is unalive now, and the other in prison. Granted, I'm a recovering alcoholic myself, so I'm not judging, just saying it may have been the best decision I ever made not to inhale. Dang, I had a similar experience. I used to smoke weed in college, and most people would come to my room to do it. One day a friend came over and had some Walter White crystals. I passed on it. He did a bunch and was up for 3 days and ended up smashing open the vending machine in the lobby and got booted out of school. Short of alcohol and Walter White crystals, I decided not to do nicotine. I still regard that as a no-brainer. It just seems so unnecessary. Story 11. I didn't go to parties until I graduated high school, and I limited how often I drink. I turned down substances like white jitter powder because I didn't want to find out if I enjoyed such an expensive habit. I'd often disappoint my friends when I didn't want to get messed up with them, but they didn't see the effect my father's alcoholism had on my youth. My real boys had my back to tell the rest to take off when I wasn't going to drink. Decades later, I rarely drink, and the only addiction I had was World of Warcraft through Vanilla / The Burning Crusade / Wrath of the Lich King. Still addicted to World of Warcraft. It's an impossible habit to break. Congrats on being headstrong and keeping to your morals. Not everyone can say that nowadays. I recently reinstalled World of Warcraft after 13 years away to casually play it. Now, instead of scheduled raids, I just clear old content for mounts. Story 12. Getting pregnant. This. My family refused to ever talk about spicy time, but luckily my dad let a few issues of YM magazine slip in through the mail without catching all the risque material they had about safe spicy time and what have you. I was terrified of getting pregnant as a teenager and have known my entire life that I didn't want to have kids. So I was very socially awkward and refused to have intimacy until I had a serious boyfriend, despite guys being interested in me in high school. I got on birth control and didn't lose my virginity until I was 19 with my college boyfriend, and we used condoms. Religiously. I'm so grateful I had the good sense to find ways to educate myself on such things. Mostly pre-internet. Same. Condoms are sold at every gas station. That's right, folks. Clutch your pearls. I had spicy time when I was a teenager. I want to add that for some, SA, lack of knowledge, or other circumstances may have made pregnancy unpreventable, and I'm not passing judgment. Story 13. My good Catholic mother said, "I would rather you didn't have intimacy before marriage, but if you do, come to me, and I'll take you to Planned Parenthood." No hassle. I did. She did. No babies before marriage. Thanks, Mom. That's a nice mother, and pretty good parenting style. No enforcing of ideas, and giving clear information and telling your kids that you support them. Sounds like my mom. Catholic, but a nurse, so she was realistic about teens and spicy time. She told me, in the most awkward way possible, that she and Dad would help me get birth control if I ever wanted to have intimacy with a boy. I think me getting pregnant too young or my brothers impregnating someone too young was her biggest fear for us growing up. Happy to say she went 3 out of 3 on avoiding that one. Joke's on her, though. Turns out I'm asexual, so having intimacy was about the furthest thing from my mind as a teenager. Story 14. After botching up my sophomore year in high school, cutting all my classes, ending my first semester with 0 credits accumulated and a sub 1.5 GPA, instead of giving up and going down the self-destructive path I was on, I recommitted myself to academics, passed all my second semester sophomore classes with a combination of A's, B's, and C's before kicking butt my junior and senior years with a bunch of APs, and coupled with a high SAT, made it into a pretty good university. This was freshman year for me. Didn't fail any classes, but was listless and just generally unmotivated. Not sure what the hell happened, but a light switch came on, and I decided to just try. Ended up making straight A's my entire sophomore year. I loaded up on advanced classes junior and senior years, focusing heavily on math and science. To this day, I'm not sure what happened. I just felt like academically challenging myself spontaneously. Maybe my sophomore classes were more interesting or something. Story 15. Add, or subtract, from population. Good for you, unaliving 1 person for every child you had. Like maybe in the banana stand. Banana, buck. Maybe you should do that math again. And that's when Michael decided to do a little detective work of his own. T-Bone, did you burn down the storage unit? Oh, most definitely. My most quoted line. Oh, most definitely. Story 16. Have kids, catch STDs, join gangs, get arrested, become a substance addict, drop out. I think teenagers are so quick to do adult things that they don't realize that adult things are some, if not all, of the worst things in life. As I often say, why is it when you see the label adult content, you're about to see really immature behavior? Also, here's a life hack. Be an adult about all the stupid stuff like paying your bills, showing up for work, etc. But other than that, do not grow up. Story 17. I didn't impregnate anyone. Probably largely due to lack of opportunity. I was a socially awkward, nerdy kid. I didn't drive drunk or even really try drinking until I got to college. I didn't experiment with or get addicted to hard substances. Did a fair bit of pot in my early 20s, though. The funny thing is, I was into punk, industrial, goth music, dressed the part, and was kind of a loner except for a few friends. So everyone just assumed I did all those things anyway. Story 18. Despite drinking a lot, I did not drink and drive. Me too. Lost a dear friend to drinking and driving. Same, except my friend wasn't the one drinking. Instantly unalived by a drunk driver while riding his motorcycle home from his McDonald's job at 2 a.m. R.I.P. Jeremy. Story 19. I never dated anyone from my high school. Only girls from Canada. You wouldn't know them, of course. Her name is Alberta. She lives in Vancouver. She cooks like my mother and sucks like a Hoover. I email her every single day just to make sure that everything's okay. It's a pity she lives so far away in Canada. Story 20. I never joined a street gang. I was in the rare percentage of kids from my neighborhood. Good for you. I used to tutor in juvenile detention and met a lot of kids who'd made that mistake. I've worked in one for the last 10 years. These kids think they're top dog and don't know they're just being used to do the stuff that's going to get them arrested/unalived. Story 21. Getting angry and chasing a crowd of people with a wheelbarrow. That sounds like exactly what someone who got angry and chased a crowd of people with a wheelbarrow would say. Yeah, that's exactly what type of person I am. Story 22. Never did substances, failed a class, or got a girl pregnant. Also, when we learned in health class how important water is, I started drinking it a ton. I still do to this day. Story 23. Didn't get a girl pregnant. Pretty easy to do in an all-boys school. Story 24. Never smoked or dropped out of high school. 5 of my best friends did both. I stuck it out. No idea how those other guys are doing. Story 25. Sending tool pics.
Please leave your story in the comments. I would love to make a video on them in the future. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe.